In the dense woods of Morning Lake, a long-buried secret was about to surface, nearly 4 decades after 15 children vanished. Without a trace on a school bus field trip, their story would finally be revealed. Deputy Sheriff Lana Whitaker knew this case intimately. In 1986, these were her classmates from Holstead Ridge Elementary, a group of children who disappeared during a field trip, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions. She had been absent that day, home with chickenpox, a small detail that had haunted her for years. The morning was thick with fog hanging over Halstead County like an impenetrable blanket. Memories here seemed to dissolve quietly, slipping away without resistance. Just past 7 a.m., a dispatch call broke the silence. Construction workers digging a septic tank had unearthed a school bus, its plates matching a decades-old cold case. Lana didn't hesitate. She left her untouched coffee, grabbed her keys, and drove toward Morning Lake. The narrow road wound through pine forests, past an abandoned ranger station, and onto an overgrown service road leading to the summer nature camp the children had been so excited to visit. She remembered every detail: the yearbook photos of smiling kids pressed against bus windows, clutching Walkmans and cartoon backpacks, the last field trip before summer break, promising new cabins and lakeside adventures. Now, years later, the survivor had been found, and their story would finally be told. When Lana arrived, the construction crew had already secured the area. Patches of yellow bus peeked through the excavated ground, a ghostly reminder of a mystery about to be unraveled. The site foreman stood beside a motionless backhoe, his hard hat in hand. "Ma'am," he greeted Lana, "we didn't touch anything once we saw what it was." "You want to see this?" Her throat tight, she nodded. They had cleared enough of the vehicle to open the emergency exit door. A sour, earthy smell filled the air. Inside, dust and mold spoke of brittle decay. Seats remained in place, some seatbelts still latched. A pink lunchbox rested on the floor beneath the third row. A child's moss-covered shoe lay on the back step, but no bodies. The bus was empty, a hollow monument, a question mark buried in dirt. Lana's boots creaked on the warped floor as she stepped inside. Stale, heavy air surrounded her. At the front, something caught her eye, taped to the dashboard, barely faded. A-class list in Mr. Laney's Lupin, cheerful handwriting. 15 names ages 9 to 11. Someone had scrawled a message over it in red marker, darker and sloppier. "We never made it to Morning Lake." She stepped out, the air suddenly colder. A bird called out behind her, more warming than greeting. Turning to the foreman, her voice flat, she instructed, "Seal off the area. No one touches anything else until the state team arrives." "Yes, ma'am," he responded. Framed by pines and silence, the bus told a story. They were supposed to be gone for 2 days. Instead, they never returned. After nearly 4 decades, the bus had come back, but someone had been here long enough to leave a message. The old Halstead County records. Building smelled of mildew and lemon cleaner. Ceiling fans spun lazily, waiting for the county to catch up. Lana drummed her fingers on the counter as the clerk retrieved a case box from the archives. 20 minutes had passed since leaving the bus site, but her hand still felt coated in its dust. "Here we are," the clerk said, sliding the file forward carefully. "Field Trip 6B, Holstead Ridge Elementary, May 19th, 1986. Sealed after 5 years, no updates." Lana opened the heavy box carefully, her fingers tracing the edges of the lid. Inside lay fragments of a decades-old mystery, class photos, near-ops rosters, personal item lists, and a report stamped in deep red: "Missing persons, presumed lost, no evidence of foul play." This stamp had haunted the town for years. No closure, no answers. But Lana always knew something more lurked beneath the surface. The bus driver, Carl Davis, was a recent hire, part-time, barely vetted. No family, no roots. He vanished shortly after the children disappeared, never to be found again. Then there was the substitute teacher, Ms. Atwell. She replaced Miss Delaney during a week of illness. No one seemed to remember hiring her. Her listed address was now just an overgrown lot on the town's edge. She too had vanished without a trace. Staring at the class photo, Lana remembered every detail. The children's laughter echoing through hallways, their little backpacks swinging as they raced toward the yellow bus. Her finger traced one face in particular, Nora Kelly. Wide green eyes, a missing tooth, a pink ribbon. They had been neighbours. sharing summer popsicles on the curb. 15 minutes after Deputy Harris's urgent summons, they were at the hospital. A woman had been found near the dig site, barefoot, wearing tattered clothes, dehydrated and barely conscious but alive. The nurse's words came slowly. Stable, no ID, mid-30s, constantly insisting she was 12. Then came the moment that shook Lana to her core. A clipboard with trembling handwriting, Nora Kelly. When Lana entered the room, the woman sat up. Her hair was long and tangled, her face pale and drawn. But those eyes, those unmistakable green eyes, were exactly the same. Nora blinked, her eyes welling up with tears. She whispered something about being old, a single tear sliding down her cheek. Lana felt her throat tighten. She asked. Nora nodded. "We never made it to Morning Lake," Nora said softly. Later that day, Lana stood in the sheriff's office, golden hour light, filtering through the blinds and casting long stripes across her desk. The whiteboard was now covered with 15 names in 2 neat columns. Morning Lake Field Trip, May 19th, 86 inches, was written in red marker. She had circled Nora Kelly's name, adding notes. Found May 5th, 2025, near Morning Lake site. Appears to have aged normally. Believes she's 12 years old. No memory of events after the bus left school. Something didn't make sense. If Nora had been alive all this time, where had she been? And what about the others? By 9 p.m, Lana was back at the hospital. Doctors had run basic evaluations. No signs of injury beyond sun exposure, dehydration, and psychological trauma. Her DNA was being processed, but Lana didn't need a test. She was sure Nora had been moved to a quieter wing. When Lana entered, she found her curled beneath a blanket, staring at a small paper cup of water. Her face still held the gaunt fragility of someone too long away from the world, but her voice was clearer. "You believe me, don't you?" Nora asked. "I do," Lana said. Nora gave a sad smile. "Most don't." Lana took a seat. "Can I ask you something about the bus ride?" Nora nodded. "Only the beginning. The driver didn't talk much. He wasn't our usual guy. And there was someone else, a man waiting by the fork in the road." "What did he look like?" Lana leaned forward. "Not really. I think he had a beard. I just remember what he said." "What was that?" Nora whispered about the lake, saying it wasn't ready for them yet. A chill crawled up Lana's arms. "He got on the bus," Nora said, and then everything went blank. When Lana woke up, she was in what seemed like a home, but nothing was right. The windows were covered, and the clocks always showed Tuesday even when it wasn't. They weren't allowed to talk about their past or use their real names. Nora explained how it started. 2 people were in charge at first, a woman and a man she called Mr. Avery. The woman disappeared after a few months, probably sick. Moved around in vans, never letting them look outside. The captors insisted people had forgotten about them, that this was better. Some of the others lost memories of school and home, but not Nora. She remembered everything. Later, Lana pulled out a faded yearbook photo. Nora recognized herself, Caleb, and Marcy, tears welling up. "You kept this?" she asked. Lana's response was simple. "I never stopped." That night, Lana sat in her truck outside the old Halstead barn on County Line Road. Nora's descriptions of boarded windows and strange clocks matched this place. The barn had belonged to Frank Avery, who died in 2003, with a son named Martin Avery, whose whereabouts were unknown. Moonlight cast shadows as Lana approached the bar. A loose door creaked. Her flashlight revealed something glinting near the wall. A small, faded purple plastic bracelet tangled in weeds. She picked it up, seeing the blocky handwriting, Kimi. Kim Leong, one of the 15, a quiet, artistic girl who loved cartoons and always wrote her name everywhere. Lana's heart raced. The past wasn't just whispering anymore. It was screaming. Lana returned to the station just after midnight, keeping the overhead lights off and turning on only the lamp at her desk. The amber light pulled across the surface while the rest of the office remained quiet and still. She placed the bracelet beside the class photo, carefully aligning it with Kim Lung's face, a 10-year-old girl who wore glasses and loved dinosaurs. From her desk, she picked up the landline and dialed the Texas Missing and Unsolved Cold Case Unit, leaving a detailed message about Martin Avery and his last known associates. Sleep seemed impossible with ghosts seemingly pressing against the windows. By sunrise, the Morning Lake dig site was humming with a quiet urgency. More earth had been cleared around the buried bus. and a second team from the state's Historical Preservation Unit had arrived. Their presence felt less about historical documentation and more about what the site now represented. Standing near the emergency exit with folded arms, Lana watched forensic technicians meticulously catalogue every inch of the bus's hollowed shell. Her mind raced with memories and an unsettling unease. A forensic investigator in his late 40s, wearing square glasses, called out to her. "Sheriff," he said, lifting a sealed evidence sleeve. "You're going to want to see this." The tech held a plastic pouch containing a photograph, its colour slightly curled at the edges, but not aged as it should have been. The photo showed 8 or 9 children standing in front of a weathered wooden building, its windows boarded. Their expressions were eerily blank, not frightened, not smiling, just absent. Lana recognized several faces immediately. Marcy, Kimmy, Caleb, and in the center, Nora, with her wide but vacant green eyes. Something else caught her attention. Barely visible in the doorway shadows stood a tall, bearded man, his face mostly hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Turning the photo over, she saw a cryptic inscription, "The Chosen, Year 2. No date, no additional context." Lana's investigation led her to a potential location, Riverview Camp, an old summer retreat purchased in 1984 by a private family trust. The property sat forgotten at the edge of the national forest, 30 miles from the bus site. Land records had been mysteriously scrubbed, and the place remained untouched since the early 90s. When Lana showed the photo to Nora, her reaction was immediate and intense. Her fingers trembled as she spoke about their seasonal photo sessions, designed to document their progress. Tears welled in her eyes as she recalled the building where they were held the longest. Nora couldn't pinpoint the exact location, but remembered distinct sensory details. A river sound, a sunset whistle, and the persistent smell of burning pine. These fragments aligned perfectly with Riverview Camp's setting, near a riverbend where logging trains once echoed their whistles at dusk. A photo revealed a shadowy figure Nora identified as someone far more sinister than Avery. They called him Father Elijah, though he wasn't a priest, just someone who enjoyed the title. Nora remembered his sudden disappearance after their 3rd year, followed by another relocation. Her voice broke as she described the trauma of that time. Some captives didn't survive. Some lost their very sense of identity. Some forgot their own names, she whispered. Lana offered comfort, reminding Nora of her resilience, but Nora's warning was chilling. "They're still out there," she said, looking directly at Lana. "The others, they don't want to be found." That night, Lana drove north. The road narrowed, gravel crunching beneath her tires. Trees closed in like dense walls. Fog crept low, twisting between roots and old fence posts. Her headlights finally illuminated a faded wooden sign, nearly consumed by vines. Riverview Youth. She parked at the edge of the old property line, stepping out into complete silence. No birds, no wind, just the distant water's low hiss. Lana gripped her flashlight and followed the overgrown path, her senses alert. Halfway down the trail, the building from the photo emerged. Its roof sagged. The porch rotted through, but the wooden siding remained, blackened at the corners. Boarded windows hinted at secrets inside. As she approached, something caught her eye. Fresh footprints in the dirt, small ones, a child's prints. Her hand moved to her gun. "Hello? Anyone here?" Silence answered. Then, from inside, a soft creak of floorboards and a whisper. A child's voice, barely audible in the darkness. "You're not supposed to be here." Lana stepped onto the warped porch, wood groaning beneath her weight. Another whisper drifted out, low and almost playful. She came anyway. The door stood slightly ajar, no signs of forced entry. An earthy, metallic smell suggested air untouched for years. She nudged it open with her foot, a flashlight beam cutting through dust-choked air and skeletal furniture remains. Her attention locked on the far wall, words carved into the wood, children's names, some scratched hastily, others etched deep with desperate intensity. Kimmy, Marcy, Elijah crossed out, Caleb, Sam with a question mark, JN, Nora, repeated 3 times, vertically. This was more than a hiding place, it was a prison. Stepping forward, she passed a splintered table tipped against the wall. Something beneath caught her eye, a metal box, rusted but intact. She pried it open carefully. Papers yellowed and damp. On top, a stack of Polaroids bound by a rubber band. The images chilled her. Children captured from unsettling angles, some sleeping, some eating, one crying. Not posed, not staged. Something was deeply wrong. Lana's flashlight beam swept across the room's walls, revealing a collection of photos. Each bore a strange name: dove, glory, silence, obedience. The last image caught her attention. A child by a tree, face turned away. Her left arm exposed a purple plastic bracelet, identical to the one she'd found near the barn. Kimmy, the photo read, disobeyed. A soft creak broke the silence. Lana spun around, her light dancing across the room. "Hello," she called out. "I'm here to help." A whisper drifted from upstairs. "You're not like them." The staircase groaned under her careful steps. At the top, a door stood slightly ajar, candlelight flickering through the crack. Inside, the walls told a haunting story. Children's drawings covered every surface. A line of children walking through woods, a faceless man with wing-like arms, a burning school bus, and below it, a row of identical small headstones. A boy materialized in the doorway, barefoot, pale and thin, with dirt smudged across his cheek. "Who are you?" Lana asked gently. He spoke softly. "They called me Jonah, but that wasn't my name." "Do you remember your real name?" Lana asked. He shook his head. "They took it," he whispered. When she assured him she was there to help, he pointed behind the metal bunk beds. Names were burned into the floorboards, barely visible under a layer of dust. "Are you alone?" Lana questioned. Jonah's eyes told a different story. No, he wasn't alone. Not completely. Lana sat with Jonah in the back of her SUV, the silence broken only by the soft crinkle of emergency thermal foil. The boy was wrapped in a heavy blanket, his grey eyes distant and far older than a typical 10-year-old. He stared out the window, as if expecting something to emerge from the trees. Their drive back had been quiet. Jonah hadn't asked where they were going or why Lana had come. His only concern was whether the others would return. Lana hadn't answered because she didn't know. At the station, she guided him into a rarely used back office and pulled the blinds shut. A local social worker was on the way, but Lana wanted to speak with him first. She brought a juice box, an old wool hoodie, and a set of laminated, faded photos from an original yearbook. Jonah sat with the photos in his lap, tracing each face with a small finger. "I remember her," he whispered, pointing to Marcy. He tapped another photo. Sam, he always got in trouble, wasn't good at staying quiet. Then he pointed to Lana's childhood face. "You were supposed to come." She smiled faintly. "I was, but I got sick." Jonah tilted his head. "That's lucky." Meanwhile, across town, the forensics team made a discovery. Buried beneath the rear floor panel of a bus, they found a partially burned photo showing 4 children around a campfire. One child, facing the camera directly, had dark skin and short hair. In the bottom corner, written in marker, "He stayed." He chose to stay. Lana stared at the photo. Something tugged at the edge of her memory. She pulled up the old roster, mentally reviewing each name until she paused at one. Aaron Devlin, age 11 at the time of the trip. Quiet, bright, a gifted chess player who always read books beyond his grade. Checking the county database, she found an A. Devlin in the town's electrical department. Age 49, no high school record before 1990. Moved to Holstead in 2004. Lived alone in a trailer outside of town. No listed next of kin. Lana stood slowly. She didn't believe in coincidences. The wood around them was scorched. Beneath them in black ink were 12 names. 3 were circled, the rest crossed out. The gravel lot was quiet. Pine needles half darry a weathered trailer where a single porch light flickered weakly. Lana pulled up and knocked. Silence. Another knock, and a voice, low and calm. I knew someone would come eventually. The door opened. An older man stood there, grey at the temples, eyes sharp and unreadable. His clothing was simple, flannel jacket, work jeans, but something in his stance suggested deep stillness, like someone awaiting judgment. "Aaron Devlin?" Lana asked. He nodded slowly. "I remember you," he said softly. "You used to wear braids and a jean jacket with patches." When Lana seemed surprised, he continued. "We were in the same class. You had a green backpack with a silver zipper that always got stuck. Inside, the trailer was meticulously clean and sparse. A chessboard sat on a small table, bookshelves lined with volumes on psychology, memory, and group behavior. Aaron settled carefully on the couch's edge and began his story. He left the sanctuary in 1991 at 16. Was the one who stayed when others tried to escape, he explained. I believed it was safe, but things changed. After 4 years, the group splintered. Elijah disappeared. Marcy ran. Caleb fought back. Aaron remained, not from agreement, but from fear of the outside world. I was told our families have forgotten us, he said, his voice breaking slightly. When I finally left, I didn't know how to be anything other than quiet. Lana listened steadily. You could have helped find them. Aaron's eyes flickered at her next question. Nora remembered, he whispered. After all this time, she never forgot. Looking toward the window where dusk touched the treetops, he added, I know where the others might be. At least where they were sent after the fires. His hands clenched as he mentioned the uprising, a hint of something unresolved lingering in the air. Some kids were older by then. They set the sanctuary on fire. The group dispersed quickly. Younger children were moved, split apart, and hidden under new identities. He stood there as they buried the truth deep in the woods. In the hospital room, Lana showed Nora a photo of the boy from the fire. Nora's breath caught. She stared at the image like seeing a ghost. He stayed behind, she whispered. They thought he was gone, but he remained, and they listened to him. Do you think he remembers us? She asked. Lana nodded slowly. He remembers everything. Forest felt different now. Not wild or free, but watchful, as if it remembered the events that unfolded here. Leaves rustled, yet the air remained still. Each of Lana's steps on the narrow trail behind Aaron Devlin stirred the silence like dust. He walked quietly, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes fixed on the path. Nora hadn't come. Her body was too weak, her memories too painful, but Lana had promised to see what remained and try to find who was missing. By afternoon, they reached a small clearing surrounded by towering pines. A half-clad structure leaned against the hillside, its roof caved in. Vines twisted through the wooden frame, as if nature sought to reclaim what humans had hidden. This was the original sanctuary, Aaron said quietly. The first site where we were taken after the bus was diverted. It used to be larger, 4 cabins, a lodge, and 2 underground cells. Lana paused. Cells. He nodded slowly. They called them reflection rooms, but they were just pits. No light, no noise. Just the sound of your own thoughts until they stopped making sense. Her stomach turned. They put kids in there. Marcy, Kimmy, Nora, once for just saying the words school. I let it happen, he said, his voice cracking. I didn't stop it. I believed it was the only way we'd survive. Lana took a deep breath and stepped into the ruins. Mildew and ash lingered faintly. Scorched floorboards and broken furniture surrounded her. In one corner, shielded beneath a collapsed beam, something remained intact, a set of 3 small rusted lockers still standing upright. Aaron joined her. These were ours, he said. They made us keep only what they gave us. Bank books, uniforms, 1 spoon. But some of us hid pieces of who we used to be. The lockers held different stories. One was empty. Another contained just a torn shoe and a melted crayon. But the third concealed something more. A cloth-wrapped bundle emerged, revealing a cracked cassette player, a child's bracelet, and a drawing carefully preserved in plastic. The drawing depicted a girl on a hill under a full moon, wearing a red ribbon. In her hand, the sign proclaimed 3 words. We are still here. More than a plea, it was a declaration. Lana knelt, the drawing in her lap. Aaron identified the artist. Nora drew that. I remember the day before she ran. Lana whispered about the scattered others. Aaron pointed toward the ridge behind the old sanctuary. A hidden second trail existed where they moved the younger ones during the fire. No longer called sanctuary. They referred to it as haven. 2 hours later, Lana stood at the ridge's crest. Sunset painted long beams through the trees, illuminating a concrete structure built into the hillside. Moss and age camouflaged it. A rusted steel door hung on weathered hinges, unmarked and pathless. Aaron approached slowly, explaining this was where they kept the young and vulnerable. They didn't teach anymore, just observed. They'd call it watching the fruit ripen. Control and waiting defined their methods. Waiting for what? Obedience. Complete forgetting. his palm pressed against the cold metal. Inside, a sealed room called the garden existed. No lights, just voices, he said. They made some of us stay until we stopped asking to leave. Lana's question about those who continued resisting hung unanswered. Using an emergency jack from her truck, they pried open the door. Damp, still air filled the space. A flashlight revealed cement floors, water-stained walls, and broken furniture. Walls lined with scratches, names, symbols, messages etched by desperate hands. A small door to the right caught her attention. A crooked plaque bore a single word. Garden. Aaron's voice was quiet but certain. Some of them are still alive, Sheriff. I don't know where, but I know it in my bones. Nora's midnight awakening was marked by a racing heart and shallow breaths. Fluorescent hospital lights flickering overhead. A nurse, noticing her distressed expression, asked if she was okay. I had a dream, Nora whispered, but it wasn't mine. Meanwhile, Lana stood at the threshold of a room that felt more like a void. Her flashlight beam trembled, cutting through heavy darkness. The space was suffocating. Low ceiling, concrete walls, no furniture, no windows. An old, familiar smell hung in the air. Damp earth, metal, and something faintly sweet. Aaron remained outside, refusing to enter. He knew this place wasn't just a room, but a site of systematic erasure. Children were retrained here, forced into silence, taught to whisper unrecognizable prayers, and made to forget their own names. The walls told a story of their own, covered in marks and tallies, hundreds, maybe thousands, each scratch seemingly counting something. Time, days, punishments. In the far corner, beneath dust and broken plaster, Lana discovered a small recorder. Etched into its plastic were words, for the ones who remember. At the police station, the tech team carefully restored the fragile cassette. Lana requested privacy for its playback. With low lights and rain tapping against the windows, she pressed play. Static crackled, then a small, weak voice emerged. This is Nora. The recorder became an artifact of remembrance, a deliberate message from someone desperate to be heard. Lana's hands trembled as she slipped the device into an evidence bag. Understanding this was more than just an abandoned object. It was a testimony. The tape clicked. The silence was thick around Lana, her pulse racing. It was an old recording, but the voice wasn't Nora's. Instead, it was younger, more hesitant, unmistakably Kimmy Lung. That night, she brought the recorder to Nora at the hospital. When Lana played the tape, Nora covered her mouth. I remember this, she whispered. She used to practice her voice like she wanted someone to hear it the right way someday. Lana spoke gently. She was trying to hold on. Nora nodded. She never gave up. Even when the others started to fade, she reached for the tape, then stopped. She's alive, Nora said quietly. I don't know how I know that, but I do. Lana didn't argue. The voice hadn't sounded like someone at the end. It had sounded like someone waiting. The next day, Aaron handed Lana a map drawn from memory. He pointed to a spot near the far end of the woods, just beyond the second ridge. A hatch hidden in the roots of a tree, split by lightning. They used it when they wanted to move people without being seen. Hours later, Lana and her team hiked into the dense forest. Overcast skies. Thick branches overhead, every snapped twig echoed like a warning. They found the tree, a tall cedar hollowed near the base, its trunk cleaved decades ago and blackened on one side. Beneath its roots, carefully hidden behind brush and loose stone, was a rusted metal hatch. They forced it open. A narrow tunnel descended into the earth. Cold air poured out like a sigh. Lana led the way down the old ladder. What they discovered below was more than just a tunnel, a network. Hallways, rooms, bunks, crates, all abandoned but too intact for comfort. Then they reached a door, worn, wood-lined, sealed tight. Lana knocked once. Silence. Then, from behind the door, something scraped. A footstep. She pressed her ear to the wood and listened. The tunnel was silent except for Lana's measured breath. A small, cautious voice broke through the stillness. Behind a sealed door, something fragile and hopeful stirred. She knocked again, identifying herself as a sheriff, promising safety. When they finally unsealed the door, crowbars creaking against rusted hinges, dust billowed out like a thick, stagnant cloud. Years of undisturbed air escaped around them. Inside, her flashlight revealed a figure, not a child, but a woman. Late 30s or early 40s, she was thin and wrapped in layers of tattered fabric. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, from years without sunlight. Her wide eyes blinked against the sudden brightness. Too bright, she whispered. Too fast. Her name was Kimmy Lang. He clutched a leather-bound notebook, its edges cracked with time. They called her Silence, she said, but that wasn't her true name. When Lana crouched carefully beside her, Kimmy recognized herself from old Polaroids, from a bracelet, from a tape recording. At the hospital, Kay, as the doctors called her, remained quiet during her initial evaluation. Her responses were deliberate, uncertain, as if testing the reality around her. Across from her, Nora watched with tearful eyes. "You remember me?" she asked softly. Kimmy turned. "You had the red ribbon," she whispered. Nora smiled through her pain. "You used to braid it for me." Then Kimmy extended the notebook. "They made me keep records," she explained. "They thought I was obedient, but I wrote the truth too, in the margins, in code, like we used to do in math class." Lana carefully opened the journal. What appeared to be sermon notes and cult mantras concealed something more. In the corners, names and dates emerged. Caleb, taken in 1988, never returned. Marcy escaped during a fire, presumed dead. Sam, lost through a broken hatch, with no recovery. Jonah, obedient, transferred. Nora, punished, erased memory, withheld me, waiting. Each entry grew darker, more fractured, until the final one, a child's survival map, etched in pages of resistance, emerging from shadows cast by a system designed to erase every trace of existence. But they hadn't been forgotten, not by Kimmy, not by Nora, and not even by Aaron, who had led them here, the last survivors. Were they truly alone? The morning light caught Aaron and Lara at the ridge's edge, woods stretching below. Records whispered of a second tunnel, mythical and hidden. "I don't think it was an escape route," Lana said. Aaron turned, his response stark. A hiding place. For the ones they never wanted the world to know existed. Back in the hospital, Kimmy stirred as dawn broke. Nora slept nearby, her hand resting on the bed's edge. 30 years since her last sunrise, Kimmy's breath carried a quiet declaration. It's not over yet. The final tunnel remained unmarked, its secrets buried in Kimmy's journal. Lana deciphered cryptic clues. 3 stone trees, a river splitting but never rejoining, a red X marking a hollow curve. Aaron had spoken of sinkholes scarring the forest north of Morning Lake, natural and manufactured. At dawn, Lana followed the map. The riverbed ran low, exposing dark limestone and twisted roots. Birds chirped, but an unnatural silence hung in the air. Slippery rocks gave way beneath her feet until she found them. 3 massive petrified trees clustered on a ridge. The river split here, once wide, now divided into narrow forks. Exactly as drawn in the journal, a moss-covered depression lay hidden, gently clearing branches. Lana revealed a steel hatch, aged but still present, waiting. Lana stepped into the shaft, her boots echoing against the narrow concrete passage. Cold, bitter air rushed out, carrying hints of mildew and metal. The corridor sloped downward for nearly 20 feet before leveling out. What she discovered wasn't a prison, but a preservation. 10 small rooms, each no larger than a closet, some with beds, others with simple mats. Drawings decorated walls, stick figures holding hands, sharp frayed suns, a bus disappearing over a distant hill. No children remained, only traces of their presence. In the central room, larger and domed, 15 small desks formed a tight inward-facing circle. Each bore a nameplate, some familiar to Lana, others unknown. Beneath the dusty glass dome, a locked case held a book. Gently breaking the glass, she retrieved the plain black leather-bound volume. Opening it, her breath caught. The final curriculum lay before her. Typed lessons, handwritten notes, margins filled with repeated, urgent words. Obedience is safety, memory is danger. The past is the infection, the future is correction. Pages grew increasingly chaotic. Different handwritings scrolled across the pages, some childlike, others firm and deliberate. A name emerged repeatedly. Cassia, written, crossed out, then written again. The final page revealed a defiant message. Cassia did not forget. Cassia ran. Cassia saw what they did in Room 6. Lana radioed for a search team. Room 6 needed investigation. Hours later, they discovered the room behind a false wall, its door bricked over and sealed in concrete. When breached, the air felt distorted. Inside hung hundreds of photographs. Children in uniform, kneeling, standing in rigid rows with vacant expressions. Centered on the far wall, a hand-painted mural depicted a girl running through trees, arms outstretched, a singular moment of freedom against a landscape of constraint. Face turned upward toward the light, arms outstretched, the words painted beneath. Back at the hospital, Kimmy sat upright as Lana laid the photo from room 6 before her. That was her, she whispered, tears welling. Cassia. She was older than the others. Never joined the group. They said she disappeared during year 3. Did she escape? Kimmy shook her head. She wasn't trying to escape. She was trying to leave a door open. That night, Lana stood at the edge of Morning Lake. Stars shimmered across the surface. 15 children were taken. 3 had returned, but evidence suggested others survived, if only briefly. The final journal entries, the mural, the tape, all pointed to an unthinkable truth. Some of the missing never died. They simply vanished into a place the world was never meant to see. At least one of them, Cassia, had fought to be remembered. The mural haunted Lana, a girl's face painted in swirls of blue and gold, arms stretched as if trying to fly. Older than the others, maybe 14 or 15. Her presence in the sealed room suggested something different. Cassie wasn't a victim. She was a witness, perhaps even a whistleblower. Lana returned to the station and reopened a forgotten file. Estate ward transfers from 1991 to 1993. Dozens of unnamed children relocated after 2 unlicensed group homes collapsed in Northern California. Scrubbed medical records. Redacted intake forms. One entry stood out. A girl, estimated between 13 and 15, brought in with no memory of her name, placed in temporary care. Emotionally disconnected but physically healthy. She refused to speak during her first year. Given name, Jane Doe, number 19, later renamed Maya Ellison. Adopted in 1994 by a couple in Morning Lake. Lana's heart raced. Cassia didn't disappear. Cassia became Maya. Maya Ellison ran the town's bookstore. Quiet, kind, early 40s. Known for her soft voice and remarkable memory, recalling customers' reading preferences from years ago. Lana had spoken to her countless times, borrowed books, asked about local history. Never once had she suspected a thing. She drove straight to the shop. Maya stood behind the counter. Maya was shelving second-hand paperbacks, her hair loosely pinned in a bun, glasses resting on her nose. When Lana approached, Maya offered a polite smile. Maya, do you know who Cassie is? Lana asked softly. The woman went still, her eyes meeting Lana's with a fleeting moment of recognition before saying, no. Should I? Lana placed a photograph on the counter, a mural showing a girl running. Maya's hands began to tremble. I used to dream about her, she said quietly. I thought she was made up, a story I told myself. She would say things I didn't understand, about names, about tunnels, about forgetting. Her voice broke. I never believed it was mine. Lana gently touched Maya's hand. It was yours. You didn't just survive. You tried to leave a light on. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. I was so afraid, she whispered. They told us if we left, no one would believe us. That the world didn't want us. They were wrong. Later that night, Lana brought Maya to meet Kimmy. The moment the door opened, they stared at each other, one anchored in the past, the other having built a life beyond it. Cassia, Kimmy whispered. Kimmy, Maya responded. They embraced, first tentatively, then fiercely. Tears fell in a silence that spoke volumes. Aaron visited the next morning, standing uncertainly at the room's edge. Kimmy acknowledged him. You're the reason they weren't all forgotten, she said. You stayed. I was too afraid to leave, he replied. Maya studied him. Maybe, but fear kept us alive. She pulled out a photo from her bag recovered by investigators from room 6 showing a group of older children near a tree. One boy stood slightly apart, eyes downcast, shoulders stiff. Aaron stared. I thought they burned that. You remembered your name, Maya said. That's more than most. By week's end, Lana had gathered everything. Journals, photos, murals, taped confessions, recovered belongings. She prepared to file an official report. The Morning Lake reflected new beginnings. 3 months after the case, the town settled into a familiar rhythm. Tourists wandered through, the school reopened, and national headlines gradually faded. Nora was the first to leave, moving to Seattle. She returned to painting, creating her first canvas from the mural Garcia had painted in room 6. It's not just about surviving, she told Lana. It's about creating something no one can take away. Kimmy remained, living in a small cottage near the woods. The townspeople remembered her, some from old prayer lists, some from memories of her mother. Weekly, she visited the lake, leaving a flower at the wooden sign. She spoke to the trees, calling out names, real ones. Maya went back to her bookstore, but with a deeper purpose. She started free workshops for youth, creating quiet spaces for those without safe homes or memories. Every Friday, she served tea and let children choose the books she read aloud. In quiet moments, she traced the outline of a certain mural in the back room. Aaron disappeared without a word, leaving no forwarding address. The lake held its secrets. A small wooden sign now stood at the dock's edge. In memory of the missing, to those who waited in silence, your names are remembered. Lana had placed the Polaroid beneath it. The old mural image of a girl running toward light. Months, perhaps years, would pass before the full truth emerged. State investigations would begin. Families would come forward, some to mourn, some to seek justice. But for Nora, Kimmy, and Maya, a different path beckoned. They wanted to start a foundation for lost children, for the unheard, for those who had their names taken and found again. The wounds hadn't fully healed, not yet, but hope flickered, quiet and persistent, like the sunlight sparkling on the lake surface. Lana tucked the letter into her desk drawer, a photo of an old, rusted bus clipped to its edge. The single word Arcadia was scrawled on the back. She wasn't ready to open a new case, not just yet. But something stirred inside her. There were more stories out there, whispers of other towns, other kids, the ones they had found and the ones still waiting. Late at night, when the wind danced through the trees outside her window, she'd gaze up at the stars over Morning Lake. The possibilities hung in the air like a half-formed thought. She hadn't been brave enough before, but maybe now was different. Something was calling her, pushing her towards a truth just beyond her reach. The letter had slipped quietly beneath her office door. A silent messenger, promising more than what lay on its surface. Each rustle of leaves, each shadow cast by moonlight seemed to whisper secrets she was beginning to hear. The names that once echoed through history now drift in silence, waiting. Kimmy, Cassia, and Lana represent more than just individuals. They are potential bearers of memory, keepers of forgotten stories. Each name represents a life that risks fading completely from collective remembrance, suspended in a liminal space between memory and oblivion. Who were these people? What experiences have been lost to time's relentless tide? The weight of unremembered lives hangs in the balance, hoping someone will reach back and pull their narratives into the light, rescuing them from the depths of anonymous history.